Next, I would like to introduce the very distinguished guest who's known to all of us, Congressman Fitzpatrick. Congressman Michael Fitzpatrick is a lifelong resident of Bucks County, where he became active early on.
Oh my goodness.
Disperse, you rebels! Right in your arms! And disperse! My name is Roger Moody, formerly apprentice practice in St. George's Street, City of London, but now corporal in His Majesty's 23rd Regiment of Foot, Royal Welsh Fusiliers, currently engaged in putting down rebellion and unlawful sedition in His Majesty's North American plantations. And I'm here to tell you that that noble work is nearly completed. Ever since General Sir William Howe and his troops assembled in strength last summer at New York, British arms have enjoyed a string of uninterrupted triumphs. Anywhere Mr. Washington and those peculiar creatures you call Continentals have dared to meet us in battle, we have given them a thorough thrashing. Long Island, Kips Bay, White Plains, Fort Washington, and Fort Lee. We chased them out of Manhattan, across New Jersey, over the Delaware and into Pennsylvania, where they've spent the past winter cowering in your midst, stealing your crops, pestering your daughters, and counting the days until their enlistments would run out and they could abandon a doomed cause. You know your history. Your ancestors crossed the Atlantic and settled these lands under the sufferance of the crown. Each of your colonies was created by a royal charter that bound its inhabitants to forever respect the sovereignty of the king. And that sovereignty has been exercised with the leniency of a loving parent. All that's been asked of you is that you pay a small share of the cost of your own defense. To refuse is not only traitorous, but base ingratitude. And the king, as much as he loves his colonists, will no longer tolerate either offense. Make up your minds to it. You live on the king's land. The king's troops are here to enforce obedience to the king's law. You have no army worthy of the name to defend you. The past year has cost you more in lives and treasure and destroyed property than you'd ever lose in a century of paying your taxes. To continue with this rebellion guarantees your utter ruin. Each of you men here who persist in this folly will die. If you do not fall to hot lead or cold steel, you will find yourselves, along with your leaders, demagogues who have deceived and deluded you, dangling from the hangman's tree. Save yourselves. Save yourselves. Who will be the first of you to step forward? This is the King's proclamation of amnesty. Who will sign it and thus avoid a traitor's fate?
Hold on there, Redcoat. I'm Brigadier General John Cadwalader, commander of the Pennsylvania Militia and the Philadelphia City Troop. I'm also one of those individuals you just called a peculiar creature, and I take umbrage with that statement. Now, I realize that since we started this quarrel in 1764 over the Stamp Act, that His Majesty's subjects within these colonies have repeatedly sworn their allegiance to the Crown of Great Britain, no less than the subjects born within the realm. Yet times have changed, Corporal, and like the scent of spring flowers, we now have the smell of freedom and independence in our nostrils. Let me give you a colonial point of view to your slanderous words, and I tell you to take heed, for if you do not, I shall run you through before I leave. You British hireling, what price have you been paid for these so-called uninterrupted triumphs, other than to be pushed aside by our musket balls like chessmen falling from a chessboard? What you call triumphs have been nothing more than our retreats that have been dictated by prudence, certainly not by fear of your arms, your experience, or your numbers. Guard this well, or we shall come through in the end. However, you failed to make mention of the 30 men from Edward Hand's Pennsylvania Rifle that stopped the British Army dead in their tracks at Frog's Neck on Manhattan. And how could you have overlooked General Washington's most masterful evacuation from Brooklyn Heights on Long Island? with the help of John Glover's Marblehead, Massachusetts Regiment and Israel Putnam's 27th Massachusetts Regiment, that in one night rode 9,000 of our men to the shores of Manhattan, right under the noses of the Howe brothers. In fact, that crossing was so successful, we used it again this past Christmas from these very shores. Don't be fooled, Corporal, into thinking that we're nothing more than shopkeepers, farmers, wig makers, and merchants. For we have a higher cause that evidently you, King George, and all his henchmen in Parliament just don't seem to understand. Now, you forget also that this past Christmas, we did something that you probably weren't even involved in, and that was attack Trenton and Colonel Rawl and all his Hessians. We took his life and close to 1,000 prisoners. And I ask again, where were you then in the Second Battle of Trenton, when your General Cornwallis thought that he had General Washington and the entire Continental Army surrounded and ready to surrender, only to learn that His Excellency General Washington had performed another brilliant maneuver around Cornwallis and attacked the British garrison at the Battle of Princeton, where they surrendered their men, their munitions, and their supplies. These victories have now caused the Crown's army to leave New Jersey, hopefully forever.
Aye, you were brave enough at Trenton when 3,000 of Mr. Washington's troops surprised 1,500 Hessians, but it was a different matter when Mr. Washington led 7,000 of his scarecrows against 700 British soldiers at Princeton. My brother Redcoats held your entire army at bay until, overwhelmed by sheer superiority in numbers, early in that fight, as I recall, a single British regiment routed 2 of your rebel brigades, one of which was commanded by you, Mr. Cadwallader. It's fortunate that you are so fleet of foot, or else you would have shared the fate of your brother Brigadier, you Messer, who squealed for mercy when our lads skewered him with their bayonets. We've given you the run of New Jersey for the past few months, but only to regroup and reorganize. Now that the spring favors us with favorable campaigning weather, we'll be dogging you again. And I vow the British flag will be flying over your capital of Philadelphia before this year of 1777 is over.
You insolent knave. Those 23 graves behind you are a constant reminder to us all of the price we're willing to pay for freedom, independence, and self-rule. 22 of those graves have no names, yet they're no less important than the one that does bear a name, for they've all given their lives for our cause. Don't be fooled into thinking that we're laggards or slothful. To prove once and for all that the Declaration of Independence is not simply words on parchment, but a declaration of our resolve. And I promise you, Corporal, take heed. Leave here peacefully now, or you shall find yourself kissing this hallowed ground forever.
We'll meet again.
And I shall be prepared and anxiously awaiting